Great. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Parent Hour this week. So we reintroduced Parent Hour last week. We told you we kicked off this series last year for the first time, whereby we would do timely topics probably every other week throughout the fall semester for first-year families. And coming into this semester or this year with COVID, at first we thought, well, it's kind of bizarre for us to put together a series of topics when all everybody wants to talk about right now is COVID. And it felt, just a little misplaced. But then as, we've gotten through the past few months and we started to realize that business has to carry on as usual. We still have really important things to talk about, like billing and registration and, getting ready to leave for Thanksgiving and getting ready to return and staying connected and mental health and all of the normal topics that we would be talking about if we weren't in a COVID semester. So last week we did focus on COVID because we figured people would have a lot of questions and we wanted to give the opportunity for folks to ask and kind of hear what we're doing behind the scenes. If you missed that, it's recorded and it's on the parents page, so you can watch that if you want. But this week we're relieved not to talk about COVID for a little while. And I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. My name is Jessica Nicklin. I'm the Associate Vice President for Student Success. We were just joking offline about this is like the time everybody's putting their 2-year-olds to bed, and there's you might hear some screaming people in the background. And don't worry, everything's under control. Post dinner time ritual. So I oversee the Center for Student Success when I'm not overseeing COVID, the counseling and psychological services, tutoring, health services, among other areas. So I'm really excited to present my panelists tonight, Katie Kitchens and Julie Spring, both representatives from the Center for Student Success, and they're going to answer all questions related to getting registered for the spring semester, and probably could answer some other questions related to Center for Student Success or advising or, anything, pertaining to that. So I'm going to stop talking and let Katie and Julie take over the show. So welcome and thanks for attending tonight.
Thanks so much, Jess. So I'm Katie Kitchens, and you can see our faces, but you can also see our headshots. So there you go on the screen. I'm Katie Kitchens. I'm the Director of Student Services and Advising in the Center for Student Success, and my lovely assistant.
Hi, I'm Julie Spring, and I'm the Associate Director for the Center for Student Success.
And as Jess said, we're really looking forward to being able to talk to you about some normal stuff tonight, registration and how we're helping students get ready for registering for the spring semester, and what you can also do to help your student be ready to register for the spring semester. So I'll kick us off here.
Katie, before you kick off, I just want to do just a quick, I should have done this. Can somebody put in the chat if you can hear us? They did just get one comment that someone couldn't hear, so I just want to check. All right, yes, I can hear you fine. Okay. All right, so I will troubleshoot that. Thank you.
Oh, good. We could have gone on for a long time. Thank you, Jess. So at University of Hartford, we call this period of time starting, which will start November 5th this year, advanced registration. And we just call it that because they're registering for the spring semester in advance. So they'll do it in November, and they'll all have assigned registration time. So all advanced registration really is that period of time where students are choosing their classes for the spring semester. During that time period, they'll have a meeting with their academic advisor where they'll receive their registration PIN, and then they can register themselves online via their self-service account. So the meeting with the advisor is really like the crux of the whole process, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but everything that's kind of encompassed on this slide is all considered to be part of advanced registration, and that process extends all the way from, students are starting to meet now with their academic advisors to go over classes for spring semester, and will extend all the way until really the first week of classes in the spring semester, but we try to get everybody as close as we can to a final schedule in November.
Thanks, Katie. I'll jump in now. So as Katie was saying, we are, ready to move on into this registration period. And so what we want to do is we want to start first in talking a little bit about what the students need to do. So as you can see, we've laid out all the different steps, and I'll just go over them real quickly with you. The first thing they want to do is they want to make sure that they're reviewing anything that's provided to them by their advisor. So first-year students get a little bit more information and guidance regarding this process, as it's the first time they're doing it on their own. So we will make sure that we meet with them in class and one-on-one to be sure that they're understanding exactly the steps that need to be taken. Upperclassmen will also get information from their advisor. So again, they want to be monitoring that Hartford email, making sure they're paying attention to any information that's coming forward. They want to confirm any AP or prior college credits that they may have acquired while they were in high school or even with their time with us at Hartford, to make sure that all of those have been filled into their curriculum so they're not registering for any classes they already have credit for. They will receive an email from the registrar's office that will give them the exact date that they can start their registration. So one point of clarity for them is that when they are assigned a date, they need to understand that they can register at that date, so midnight of that date and moving forward. If for some reason they need to do it the day after or something like that, they're certainly allowed to do that, but we always recommend that they register as close to that date as possible because you want to get in while the getting's good. So certainly they should honor that date. They will then go to course search, which will show them all of the classes that are available for the spring semester. It'll list times, locations, formats that are going to be taught, things like that. And then the next thing they will do is to be sure that they meet with their advisor. So every student does need to have some sort of interaction with their advisor to make sure that the classes have been reviewed, that there's approval, and then they will receive the registration pin at that time so they can actually register online. One stumbling block that can hold students back occasionally is accepting that enrollment terms and conditions. So it's a very easy step, and any of us in the center can certainly walk them through that if they have any confusion. If they're a returning student, they're probably very familiar with it because it's on their self-service. And again, first-year students, we will go over all of that with them in class to make sure they understand how to do that. But as soon as they've done that, they can usually move on. And then last but not least, certainly is getting that registration done via self-service right online. If they've done all the steps previous, they should have no problem and be able to complete that without a hitch.
Thanks so much, Julie. So that's the easy way, right? And Julie talked about all those different steps, and it kind of probably sounds like a lot of things that they need to do, but so much of that is going to take place, like even in the conversation with their advisor, particularly for our first year students. And I know we have some parents of students who are upper class students on here as well. But for our first year students, they're going to start talking about registration, probably already are, this week in their US 190 class. So they're going to get preparation for where exactly to find course search and what they're supposed to be looking for and, cover all of those different topics. And then when they get in their individual meetings, they'll really drill down into, okay, what AP classes did you have and what credits did you bring in, and making sure they're on track for all of that. And so they're in good hands. They will definitely know how to complete all those steps. And then at times there may be some challenges that arise that kind of, keep us out of that kind of typical trajectory that we were talking about on the last slide. So one of those challenges may be if they have a hold on their student account. So and you may have heard this term before, or maybe your student has received an email in the past that indicated that they have a hold on their account. Some holds will prevent registration, some will not. So a student is able to see if they have holds on their account in their self-service center, and they're actually able to see if that hold will prevent registration or if it will not. So they'll have all that information available to them. That information is also going to be provided to them in that same email where they're receiving their date of registration. So that'll actually be going out to all students this coming Friday. So they'll receive the date that they're allowed to register, and if they have any holds at that time on their account, it'll tell them that they have them, that they'll prevent registration, and who they need to contact for assistance in resolving that hold. Definitely for, they can contact all the offices that are listed on that email to, if they have an office listed that they need to contact to resolve a hold. They can also always contact the Center for Student Success, and our first year students should always use their first year advisor as their first, main point of contact. Any holds they have, any help they need. It's not like everybody's going to have a hold and there's going to be all these different problems, but if it does happen, for one reason or another, talk to your first year advisor, tell your student to talk to their first year advisor who can just help make sense of it. I know it can be stressful because everybody wants to be able to register, on time and not have any problems. So the earlier that they get into conversation with their advisor about how to resolve it, the better we can get them squared away, give them an action plan, and make sure that they're, good to go for their registration date. So that's one challenge that that we sometimes do see with students, and it can take them by surprise. So we don't want to have that happen on the day they go to register and they didn't have any idea. We're trying a lot of different methods of communication. They'll receive emails from us. They should receive text messages from us. They should receive communication from their first year advisor. So a lot of different ways that we can help to prevent that, so it doesn't, present a challenge for them in the moment. The next thing that, I don't know if this is a challenge, it's a little different. It's not exactly on the, the regular trajectory. So if their classes are a little out of sequence. So all that means is if they came in with prior credit, or maybe they took something that interested them in the first semester, or they changed their major and things are just not exactly on that curriculum, it may look a little bit different for them when they meet with their advisor, what they're going to be discussing and told to register for. There may be some conversations if your student might want to take a summer class or plan to take a winter term class that might shift their sequence a little bit. All of that's totally fine. It's just an additional step in the conversation with the advisor to make sure that everything is squared away for them when they go to register and that they know exactly what their plan is. Another challenge may be, some classes, and this is, again, why, we really stress that conversation with the advisor. Some classes will have prerequisites, meaning the classes that they needed to take before they want to take the next class, and some will have co-requisites, meaning 2 classes that need to be taken at the same time, concurrently in the same semester. That shouldn't come as a surprise to them when they go to register, because in the conversation with the advisor, they should be talking about, whether they have the prerequisites to be able to get into the next level of the class. So certainly in the major required classes that are really well sequenced, we're not going to have any surprises there. Sometimes we find if a student wants to, they develop an interest in sociology, and this 300 level sociology class just sounds so interesting to them and they really want to register for it, but you really need intro sociology before you do that. So, if they have an interest that they want to pursue as an elective, something they're really interested in, they should talk about that too with their first year advisor, not just the, major required classes. So the advisor can just make sure, hey, you got to take a prerequisite for that class. So just make sure you are doing that now so you can take that class you're, really interested in as your elective later on. The last piece, and this isn't, again, not so much a challenge, but just something to be aware of. I maybe misnamed this slide a little bit. So is a lecture lab combination for the lab sciences. Our lab sciences, like chemistry, biology, physics, are going to have a lecture component and a lab component. They're 2 different courses, technically. They have to be taken together. So if you're registering for a Chemistry 136 lecture, you've got to register for a Chemistry 136 lab. And when you go in to actually register in the online system in their Student Self-Service Center, if they just enter in one but not the other, it'll just give them an error. So they have to enter both at the same time, so the system picks up, oh, right, okay, you're doing the right thing, you're registering for both of these, and they're a package deal. So that's really the only thing to be aware of with that. I have had students come to me and say, it won't let me into my chemistry class, and it's because they're not putting in both the lecture and the lab at the same time. So it's really, feels like a challenge, but we get past it. It's just, we don't want to add stress to the situation, so we want them to know about that in advance.
Thanks, Katie. Real quickly, I just want to acknowledge, I know that Jess is handling all of the questions in the Q&A, but I do see that there's a question up in the chat as well, and I want to let you know that we will get to those at the very end of the presentation. We'll make sure everything is addressed, so not to worry, we will get to that at the end. So back to our slides. As you may or may not know, our students had the option this fall to study remotely if they felt that that was the better scenario for them. And there has been a group on campus that has made sure that we've met and looked at the situation at hand and determined that that same option will be given to students for the spring semester. So yes, a student can choose to study remotely for spring 2021 if they think that's the best option for them. It's a pretty simple process, and they were actually notified about that last week in an email that was sent out. There is a Google form that is a request form that they will have to fill out in order to be fully remote. That will then kick it into process to go to all the schools and colleges. So each of the associate deans are then monitoring all the students who have made requests. They're reviewing everything to make sure that things look as though it's not going to be a concern for a student within their curriculum. As long as everything is approved and all taken care of, then the student will then work directly with their advisor to register for the appropriate classes. So the benefit of the way we're doing this for this semester is that we're trying to be proactive and have students make this selection prior to registration, making it a lot smoother for everyone. So the advisor will know that their students are looking to be fully remote. The student will know that they're going to get all the classes they need in the format as fully remote. And that's why we ask students to make the decision a little bit earlier for spring. So another thing that we're doing in the process to make it, again, a little bit smoother for both students and advisors is when they're looking at class search, there will be an asterisk on courses that cannot accommodate a remote learner. So students, if they are applying to be fully remote for spring, will want to avoid classes that they're looking at that have that asterisk, because that'll be in-person teaching or a hybrid format where a student would be expected to be in person all the time or partially. And then last but not least, the thing that we would ask them to do is make sure that they are taking as many classes as possible in the fully remote format. And again, the advisors will have all this information to be able to guide them through that. But they do have the option as well, if they had to look at a hybrid situation and then work with the faculty member to let them know that they'd be fully remote. But again, the way courses have been laid out for this spring, we are much more aware and making sure that there are the offerings for fully remote students, so there shouldn't be any stumbling blocks with that process. Last but certainly not least, if they're concerned that they missed that notification for some reason, they can certainly reach out to the center. So they can reach out to us at css@hartford.edu, and we are happy to forward that form on to them. We did ask that students do that by earlier this week, but again, certainly we can address questions, requests moving forward if need be, because we certainly understand that circumstances will change as we're living in these unique times.
Thanks, Julie. So since we have all the parents here, a lot of times, we get asked, what should I be on top of? What should I be reminding my student about? What should I be telling them? So the, biggest things parents can do, ask your student about registration. What have they already, have they already talked to their advisor? Encourage them to reach out if they haven't already. I'm sure, especially I know first-year students, their advisors are all over them on this, but, they may be getting email communications from their advisor about setting up a meeting. They may need to set up that meeting through Compass, through our online platform where we, schedule our interactions with our students. So please encourage them to follow up with their advisor and make sure that they've scheduled that meeting. Work with your student to resolve any potential holds. Again, they should be getting a lot of communications about that. So ask them about, hey, do you think you have any holds on your account? Is there anything we should talk about to make sure, you're squared away for registration? And then help encourage them to advocate for themselves and ask questions. If they are worried about something or confused about something or not sure if their AP credits actually came to you, just ask. Their first year advisor in particular can look up almost anything. And then we have lots of contacts and lots of offices. So we can get a lot of answers. And if, I'm talking to parents of students who are not first year students, call us, call the CSS, again, if you're worried about your student or, any account type issues or if they haven't heard from their advisor or if you just have any concerns about registration at all, you can give us a call and we're happy to help answer your questions and get you connected to the right place. So I think the biggest thing, particularly for parents of first-year students, it would be just asking your student about spring registration, what they've done so far, how they're feeling about it, and what their meeting with their advisor has been like and what they want it to look like so that they, are prepared going into that. They should have an idea of the classes that they think they need to take, classes that they might want to take. Some majors are really prescriptive in terms of, you'll have to take these 5 classes in the spring of your first year. And some majors are not. So if you, are the parent of a student who's in a major where they have a lot of choice and flexibility, I think having a nice conversation with them so they can start to work out some of their thoughts if they're undecided or maybe they thought they were decided, but they maybe are thinking, I might want to change my mind. What are you interested in? Look on course search. What classes appeal to you? Try out new things and, really encourage them to explore. If that's the stage that they're in, there's plenty of time to be exploratory and to figure out what they want to do. So I think, they can absolutely have those conversations with their advisor and they will, but it's nice to hear, from a parent that they're interested, in what you might, want to be studying. So I think that's a good conversation to have as well. So the moment you've all been waiting for, we're ready to take some questions. So Jess, do you want to tell us what you're seeing and what we should address?
Sure. Well, it's hard to, like, sometimes they're sent privately and then sometimes so I don't know what you've been able to see. So let me ask one that came up a little earlier that could be applicable. And Julie, maybe you could take this one. So if someone's like a junior or senior and they want to make sure that they're on track, and they want some sort of like official degree evaluation, and beyond what just the advisor could tell them, what would you recommend?
Right, absolutely. Great question. So if a student is categorically a senior, meaning they have the correct number of credits to be listed as a senior, the schools and colleges all have a degree evaluator within them, so they can either go to someone at the individual school or college and find out who the degree evaluator is, or they can certainly reach out to the center or even myself directly, and we can let them know who the college evaluator is. Any senior is eligible for an official degree evaluation, meaning the evaluator will go through their credits. They will let them know exactly what they've achieved and anything that is missing. So the student would have in writing what they're actually having left for their program. If they're not categorically a senior, it really varies by the school and college. Some of the schools and colleges will work with someone who's very close to being a senior and still do that official evaluation. Some will say maybe go to the department chair and have them help you to see, what's remaining and what still needs to be done. But again, either way, I would always encourage them to go to that evaluator in the school and college and just ask the question, especially if they're close to that senior status, because then again, they are eligible and they can get all that information so they can document it and know exactly what needs to be completed.
Excellent. A couple people asked, and you guys are intimately aware of the remote process, so you might be able to answer this better than I could. Do you know anything about the composition of in-person classes versus remote and how it may be different than the fall, more or less the same, what it looks like?
Yeah, we are expecting it to be more or less the same, and based on the number of remote students that we have right now and the number that, we're looking at roughly the same number for the spring so far of requests that have come in. So we are expecting that to look just about the same, with a couple of notable exceptions. Now that we have gone through this one semester, we have a lot more information to work with. And so there are departments and programs that, we're looking at the spread of their students and just how many, of their students were remote. And in some of those cases, they found, wow, we are going to have, a lot of second semester juniors who are remote, and they all need to take this class. So we're going to make sure we offer a section of that remotely. That was a luxury in planning that we did not have going into the fall because everything was happening at the same time as everything else was happening. And so this time around, I think we might see some differences, but they're strategic differences. And so we expect that to be really smooth.
Thank you. Well, I have a couple of questions about honors, but they're very specific. So let me see if...
Oh, Jess, actually, I should add one more thing because I'm just scanning through the chat, and it is related to what I was just saying. In terms of in-person classes, students looking to have a more robust in-person experience, again, with the enhanced ability for planning going into the spring semester, we have been able to optimize our classroom space a little bit more. So the reason we have so many classes in hybrid format right now, and I do fully expect that we'll have classes in hybrid format in the spring semester, it's really all about the ability to maintain social distancing in our classroom spaces. But what we were able to do going into the spring is knowing how many students our spaces could accommodate with 6 foot distancing, and the caps on our classes before all the rooms got assigned, is we're working to really maximize, the ability to have full classes all in person, instead of as many hybrids as we have right now, just based on our ability to put the right size class in the right size space given social distancing requirements. So for some of our larger classes, we don't have a lot of large lecture halls at UHeart, which is one of the things I love about UHeart, because that's not our style. It does make social distancing a little bit more of a challenge right now. So we are going to definitely still have classes operating in the hybrid format, but I don't think we'll see quite as many as we have this fall.
Couple of really practical questions. When will the classes be available, like the course catalog, if they're not already, and dates of registration and winter term classes dates? That was 3 questions, but they're all kind of related.
Me or you, Julie?
So the class search, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, that will be available this coming Monday, the 26th?
It's at least by then for sure. I'm thinking actually closer, I think Friday, the 23rd.
Wonderful. Okay. So they will be able to get in there and start to look and see what the offerings are as soon as maybe Friday, but definitely over the weekend or Monday. Registration begins on November 4th. So depending on what their date is, and there can be a variety of reasons why a student's date varies. Kind of bottom of the level there. It's done by credits, so the number of students a credit has, a number of credits a student has will tell them when they get to register. So obviously the more credits, the sooner they register, but there's a variety of reasons why a student may get an earlier date. So it could be that they're an athlete, it could be that they're an RA, it could be that they're in the honors program, or they have a GPA that makes it where they get to register a little bit earlier. So the date can really vary based on that. Winter term, Katie, I might need you to jump on this one. I believe that starts December 26th, correct?
The winter term classes will start that day, yes, and they are all taking place online this winter term. The winter term offerings are available on the website already, and students actually could start registering for them right now if they wanted. The registration for winter term opened October 1st.
Awesome. I think that was all 3, correct? The course catalog, the dates, and the winter term. Excellent.
Yes. Yeah.
And I did see that there had been a couple of AP questions, but I see that Jess just put the link to the AP equivalencies right out there, so that will answer those questions. As there's so many APs that we take, it's easier to click that link.
Yeah, and sometimes, so if you did a college course like at a local university versus an AP course, it might be a little different. So I mean, Julie, you can speak to this probably better than me, but you could always check with the advisor, and then if it's not showing up the way it should, or you have questions, we can work with admissions and make sure, the course is coming in, or figure out, what's going on.
Absolutely. If a student should always ask the question if they're concerned that a course does not appear to be coming in as it should be, and they can see how things have come in on their self-service. If there is any concern, they should reach out to their advisor immediately, and we can look into it with, like Jess said, either the admission office, or we can look up, right on the AP equivalency, depending on how it came in. But they should never wonder. We always want to make sure, because we certainly don't want a student taking anything they already have credit for.
Yeah. And I see some questions about when spring begins and Thanksgiving move out. I'm pretty sure that information is coming out this week. I know everyone's anxiously awaiting it, and I think part of it is just making sure that we get it right. So I know for sure the spring calendar correspondence is coming out very, very soon. So that should hopefully start to answer some planning type questions. So here's this, I'll ask the specific question and then we can generalize it. As I said, we have a couple honors questions. So the student is an art school student and is in the honors program. Are there any honors classes he is not allowed to take in the spring?
So typically, for a first-year student in the art school, the honors class that they would take in the spring of their first year would be honors writing 2. So they, took writing 1 in the fall, assuming they didn't have any prior credits. There's so many different caveats with this, but generally speaking, that's what they would take. There are other options though. So there are often honors options for UIS classes, which is our University Interdisciplinary Studies, our across college general education curriculum. And so there are often some options there if that sounds more appealing, or if they have room for a UIS class in this semester. The ones that would not necessarily be available that I'd be worried about is upper level honors classes where they don't have the prerequisites for them is all. So obviously they couldn't take honors writing 2 if they haven't taken honors writing 1. So just that prereq, again, to pay attention to.
And same thing, so for a Heart student that got invited to do the honors program, there will be courses available that could fit into their schedule to help fulfill the requirements.
Yes, for the honors program, yes. So again, that's another example where honors writing 2 is probably going to be what our Heart students are taking in the spring semester. They may also, again, have the option to take an honors UIS. The puzzle piecing together of a schedule is always a fun challenge. And, especially so for Heart students because they've got, their performances and other things to be mindful about that aren't necessarily class times, but are other things to consider. So first year students are all working with Megan Abernathy on their schedules, and she is a wealth of information. So definitely, encourage that conversation if they're worried about class times and things fitting.
I definitely terrified somebody, so I want to try to clarify. It's not a Thanksgiving move out, so students should not have to bring all of their things home. Again, you'll get more information, I hope this week, I believe this week, about what it looks like to leave for when Thanksgiving happens, but there should not be an entire move out, move in process. So I'm sorry if I misspoke and terrified anyone that you have to go through that, but absolutely bring valuables, anything you would need. And also anything you would need in the event that, coronavirus gets worse and we can't come back together, anything that's essential. So I think part of the planning process will be a survey, asking questions about when people are getting ready to leave and some other things to help streamline that so we don't end up in a situation like the spring where people are frantically trying to get their things and, get home. So there is not a Thanksgiving move out. Thank you for asking me to clarify.
Jess, I saw a question about winter term begin and end. And I know, Julie, you addressed the beginning on December 26th. It ends on Friday, January 15th.
How do students go about choosing a minor and choosing their classes? That's a 2-part question.
I like to see how we wait to see who's going to unmute first. So if a student, and we can tag team this one, Katie, if a student is looking to select a minor, that's a great conversation to have with your advisor. I ironically met with one of my advisees today who had a question about a minor. And so for my situation, so I work in particular with the students in the College of Engineering, Technology, and Architecture. This given student was actually looking to minor in biology, which is outside of our college and is over in the College of Arts and Sciences. So that's a wonderful option because it's really broadening his horizons and kind of getting him a couple of different experiences. But I wanted to be sure that we watched how courses might double dip, if you will. So some courses that were listed as a biology minor might also already be in his major curriculum. So what I did is I immediately reached out to the department chair of biology. I was incredibly pleasantly surprised because she replied within 7 minutes of my sending the message, and I introduced her and my advisee. And she laid out all the information for us in writing, but then gave him a link to set up an appointment as well because she felt like it was great to Zoom with him directly to make sure. I had sent her a grid showing what he's already fulfilled in his major, and she was going to fill in that grid with the minor requirements as well, so he can really see exactly where they fit in the curriculum, where he may have to take courses that are in a winter term or a summer term, if it's a lot of additional credits. So really, that's definitely a question to have them speak with their advisor about, and we can make sure whether they're a first-year student or whether they're an upperclassman, the advisor can make sure that they get connected with the correct people to be sure that we're fulfilling all of those requirements. And again, I think with regard to selecting courses, again, that's going to be that same conversation. So advising can really vary from department to school and college to first year to third year. You're going to see a lot of different interactions. Again, for any of you parents who are with first year students, they should be working one-on-one with their first-year advisor at the Center for Student Success. Again, we will meet with them in our class that we have with them and go over all the processes. And then most of us will do individual or very small group advising, so maybe 3 to 4 at a time, depending on the caseload, to make sure that they're getting that one-on-one attention to understand exactly what classes they need for that next semester, for the spring semester. As a student moves on at the university, then the interaction will still occur with an advisor, but the directiveness of the conversation may come a little bit more from the student. So a faculty advisor may say, okay, here's where you're going to sign up for your appointment with me for the advising for the next semester, but I would like you to come with the following. And they may say they want you to bring a curriculum sheet, they want you to have filled out all the things you've already completed, and then the courses that you're considering taking for that semester, and then they will go through and approve it to make sure that you've done what you need to do. Sorry.
I'm starting to see questions about minors. Students don't have to have a minor at the University of Hartford, but many students, it depends honestly on the program and the number of credits and the rigor, you know, if you can fit in 1 minor, 2 minors. Sometimes we have students with 3 minors or majors, but you don't have to, a really good question came up, they don't have to declare really a minor at any specific time. So, you know, it's good for advising if you know on the earlier end that they're interested and you can track that. But I've seen, you know, I'm thinking of CETA students, for example, they often realize in their senior year, wow, I have enough credits to be a math minor, and then they declare it like right before graduation. So there really is no, you know, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of declaring a minor or showing interest in something. I come from psychology, so it's pretty easy to get through the requirements for psychology and the gen eds, and then realize, wow, I have, you know, 45 free electives left. What do I want to do with that? And, you know, some students will say, I'm going to find a minor, I'm going to pick up a minor, and that's later in the curriculum. So it just depends.
And Jess, I was going to reiterate what you just said about having students be aware of majors that have built-in minors. Mm-hmm. So CETA, the College of Engineering, Technology, and Architecture, is a famous place for that. Many of the engineers already have a built-in math minor. They just have to apply for it. Computer engineering has a built-in computer science minor. They just have to apply for it. So that's something that a student should ask their advisor too, is does my program actually have a built-in minor? Sometimes they only need 1 additional course, and it never hurts to have that extra thing that you can put on your resume at the end of the day to say you had a major and a minor.
Absolutely. Even more examples where it's, you know, they're 1 or 2 classes short, you know, just by virtue of the regular major curriculum, that they're so close that, you know, it's maybe worth just taking those 1 or 2 extra classes. I'm thinking like sociology and criminal justice have enough overlap where a lot of those students who major in criminal justice will minor in sociology as well. So that's another example. I'm seeing more questions about winter term and like who should take winter term classes. I probably shouldn't have even mentioned it, but I feel like I just confused the situation. So winter term is an option. It does incur an additional cost for the credits. It is charged on a per credit basis. So it is available to students who that's a good, are good candidates for a winter term class if they want to lessen their course load in a regular academic semester, if they are looking to pursue a double major and they need to get some credits, you know, done in the off season, you know, in the summer or the winter, just to fit everything in. But it's not required. So if, you know, I'm seeing a question, my student saying she's not supposed to take a winter term class. She doesn't have to, probably, you know, especially as a first-year student. I mean, I think it's also a good candidate if a student, you know, has had a tough adjustment and fallen a little bit behind in the fall semester, had to drop a class to pick up something in the winter just to stay, you know, making regular academic progress. I think that can be a good option. It's something they should talk about with their advisor, and you can ask them about if you know they've dropped a class and you're concerned about it. But it's certainly not a requirement. There's the regular fall and the regular spring, and that'll do it for most students. But we do offer those classes.
I think you said this earlier, and it's hard to know how many first-year families we have on versus upperclassmen, but I think we definitely have a mix based on the questions. I mean, I think we hope that most advisor-student relationships are strong and students know where they could go and who they can go to, but in the case of feeling like questions aren't being answered, you know, not getting the response, not getting the support needed, what would you guys recommend?
Email CSS. So, yes, because then, we'll know exactly who the student is. We can look them up in the system. We can see who the advisor is, what college they're in, get them connected, either if it's somebody in our office they need to follow up with or somebody, in the college or an associate dean. We can, triage from there. So if they would please email css@hartford.edu if they are having trouble in any way getting in touch with an advisor.
Absolutely. I completely second that.
I think I answered this, but so scholarships and financial aid typically do not cover winter, right?
Correct. Not typically winter. Again, it's charged on a per credit basis, so it's substantially less expensive than a regular semester. Not sure what the exact per credit rate is going to be for this winter term, but I will look that up, and I can, anybody, shoot me an email if you are, thinking about that. But no, generally they're not taking their financial aid into the winter term.
And something, since we're talking about winter term, something that I saw a lot in my time as Associate Dean in Arts and Sciences is if your student is interested in taking a class at home, maybe local community college, it's less expensive, you want to do that, just make sure that you get approval before you do it. So check in with the advisor, because sometimes there are certain courses that might be in the major that have to be taken at the university, or they require special permission, or you would hate to take a class that comes in differently that you've already taken and you don't get the credits twice. Or, I've seen so many times where students have taken classes and then they don't count for what they hoped they counted for, or they can't use them the way that they wanted to. So if you are thinking about doing that, which in most cases, that's actually a really nice option to be able to do it at a local institution that's more convenient for you over winter or summer, but just check in with the advisor or admissions first, to make sure that the credits come in the way that you're hoping they do.
Julie and I are so excited that you brought that up. We both were like, yay! So yeah, there is a form that the student will need to fill out. Once they've selected a class that they want to take someplace else, they will tell us on the form what that class is, and there's a series of signatures they need to get. And really what that ensures is that everybody who's needed to look at that class and say, yep, that's going to come in exactly how you expect, has had a chance to do that and to have that conversation with the students. So there's no surprises when that transcript comes over. It goes in exactly how they're expecting. So yay, Jess, thank you.
Yeah, I'm seeing, I think, questions start to slow down. So let me reiterate, again, because I don't want to terrify or give misinformation. Information about the spring calendar should be coming out very soon, as well as any plans for leaving and returning for the spring. So stay tuned for that. I don't think this group is as well versed in all the details of those plans, so I don't want to misspeak and answer questions incorrectly, but I know for sure the correspondence is beginning to come out this week. Yeah, any follow-up questions after this, css@hartford.edu. We'll definitely get to Katie or Julie. And if your student is suffering through registration or questions or just feeling like they're not getting what they need, again, you can get them to CSS. And we never want a student to feel hopeless or that they don't know the answer or feel like they're struggling. So absolutely, css@hartford.edu.
And Jess, I just wanted to jump in real quick too and say for all of you, if you have students who are on campus with us currently, they can certainly come to the center as well. And we have the ability for them to Zoom with us right there and let us know what they need. They can ask the question. We have a staff member and student workers who are right there to address the question. And then if they need to go into a queue, then they are matched up with a staff member who's on duty and they Zoom with them individually as well. So certainly emails are wonderful. Katie has listed out our center email as well as her email and my email. We're happy to have you do it that way, but we do want students to know that they can still come to the center and over in Jangor Student Union, and they can still get direct questions answered, that they need on a daily basis. So don't hesitate to do that as well.
There's so many ways to get in touch with us this semester. I actually think we're more accessible now than ever before. There's just all these different options. So we have our live chat feature on the website, the CSS website as well. You can call us. So there's so many different ways for students to reach us, for you to reach us. So that hopefully that will not end with COVID. We'll just keep on being as accessible as ever.
Yeah, and I think that brings up, so any, especially if you have upperclassmen, any service that we've ever offered, whether it be tutoring or counseling or engagement or CSS, career, everybody is still operating. It might look a little different in terms of how you make an appointment or how you get those services, but all of the services that we've ever had are still operating. So when in doubt, again, you can go to CSS, but we're all still there and available. Great. Well, we want to be respectful of everybody's time, and it seems the questions have slowed down. So I really want to genuinely thank you all for coming. It's really nice to do these when you have a group of people instead of like 2 people or 3 people. So the questions were great. Thank you for being so engaged, and we look forward to hearing from you and working with you. So thank you, Katie and Julie.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.